Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me warmly welcome all of you who joined this very important webinar organized by the Trade Finance team of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, titled New Opportunities for Exporters. We have a set of well-experienced panelists who will be sharing their wealth of knowledge with you today. To start the proceedings, let me first introduce our moderator for this evening, Mr. Lorian Somanada, Chief Manager Exports of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC. Lorian is having banking experience for over 30 years in exports, imports, and corporate banking. He is the current president of the Trade Finance Association of Bankers as well. Over to you, Lorian.
Thank you, Prasad. Good evening, distinguished panel of speakers and all participants. I warmly welcome you for this for this webinar. Today's discussion will be focused on the new opportunities that exporters could avail. To discuss, we have an eminent panel of speakers comprising of Mr. Suresh Dimel, who will enlighten us with the new opportunities that is available for exporters, and Mr. Atula Edrisinghe would explain the concept of establishing the export houses. Mr. Preena will take us through the products and financing tools available for exporters. Mr. Asela Vijayasiriwardana would discuss the various foreign exchange issues that we are presently confronted and the way forward. So participants, if you have any questions to be clarified, please use the chat box in raising your queries. We will take up during the Q&A or even after each presentation. So take us through this session. It is with great privilege that I introduce the first speaker, who is no stranger to any one of us. Mr. Suresh Dimel is the Chairman, CEO of Sri Lanka Export Development Board and a well-known entrepreneur who actively serves on several boards and committees, government and non-government, for the development of regional SMEs, entrepreneurship, vocational training, labor relations, responsible tourism, and sustainable agriculture and exports. Mr. Dimel has worked in the US as an agricultural and environment engineer for 10 years before returning home in 1990 and investing in the manufacturing of designer fishing flies for the export to USA, and has thereby earned foreign exchange for his country. He is also the chairman of Ecoway GT Private Limited, GT Limited, and Ecoway Travels, which are social enterprises that promote sustainable organic agriculture and responsible eco-agro-tourism. I cordially invite Mr. Dimel to give his insights. Over to you, Mr. Dimel.
Thank you, Lorian. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. The current situation with exports is unpredictable. We are probably living through the most unpredictable times of our lives. However, there are some opportunities in this current scenario, which I would like to focus on today. Now, traditionally, our exports have been apparel, tea, rubber, and coconut, in that order, and has been like that forever. Even now, those three products are our top three or four products for export. Now, the new trends that we are seeing, in addition to these products, is spices. Now, it's funny that I have to say that spices is a new trend because the earliest export we know out of Sri Lanka is spices. Sri Lanka was colonized for its spices, and Sri Lanka is known worldwide for having very high quality spices. And we boast to be the best in the world cinnamon, the best in the world black pepper, even the best in the world turmeric. So we have still not been able to get the markets that we should be getting for our best in the world product. Of course, tea, which was introduced to Sri Lanka, has also struggled to create, although we are the best in the world, we still do not have that premium market that we should have, because much of our tea is still exported in bulk. So I would like to focus on possibly the most important thing for exports today is value addition, because we have a situation where most successful exporters out of Sri Lanka have a short supply or lack capacity. And the reason for this is because, one, we do not have the quality of product that is demanded in international markets. Now, in order to get the quality of product that is demanded by international markets, we have to add value. And that is the key. So when we talk about SMEs, if we talk about agriculture, most of the supply chain is SME farmers or producers of, say, spices. Now, if we can, with our, the best opportunity we have for exports today would be in our 100% chemical-free export of agricultural products. That's a no-brainer, because we will be the first in the world country to be 100% chemical-free. Now we need to start marketing that right away, and we should create the quality product. The best way to add quality would be branding our organic produce, giving it the organic produce label. The second best way is to improve the cleanliness and all other certification that we require in for international markets, the compliance. Today, international markets, especially for food, are requiring a lot of compliances, from microbiological requirements to fair trade and compliance with social norms. Now, these are all opportunities for our Sri Lankan exporter. I must say that Sri Lanka has been exporting organic products, ethical products, socially compliant products to the premium markets around the world. And we have a good reputation. We currently have about 300 exporters exporting organic produce. We also have about 12,000 farmers who are producing export quality certified organic product. So I think that currently our best opportunity is to market Sri Lanka as the cleanest food in the world. In 3 or 4 years, when we have gone through the transition, we will be the favorite nation. By that time, I am sure that the compliance requirements in Western countries will be extremely high for food. And we can get up there in that value chain if we work hard at getting through this current transitional stage of moving into organic agriculture, because I am very confident, being in the industry myself, I am very confident that we can convert and we can be the best in the world in 4 years for agriculture. And that will give Sri Lanka a fantastic reputation, even for tourism. That will give Sri Lanka a fantastic image. So I don't think we have had an opportunity since we were claimed to be the best tea in the world during British times. By the way, the British didn't use chemicals in the tea plantations when they were here. It is when they were leaving that the chemicals came into Sri Lanka in the 60s. So it can be done. It can be done. And we must all get on this, get together to make this happen. Now, in this context, supply chains are the gap. We have demand and we have supply, but the gap between the supply and the quality that is required is wide. And for this, I talked about agricultural produce, but most produce and even industrial products. We have a lot of improvement opportunities. And this is where I think Mr. Atula will talk about the opportunities we have with an export house, where we will have a responsible intermediary who will take care of the SME supply chains, and then also transfer the technology that is required to produce a product that is acceptable for premium international markets. So with that said, I would like to focus on the other opportunities that are growing out in the export market. Fishery products. Sri Lanka is also famous for fishery products. And there is much opportunity for value addition and post-harvest technology, just like in agriculture. In fishery also, we need post-harvest technology and development. Food products, you see, that is finished food, like frozen food, dehydrated food. All that is a fantastic opportunity going forward. Then away from agriculture or fisheries, we have a growing demand for electrical and electronic equipment. There too, we will have to do some skills development and try to meet the world demand on electronic and electrical equipment. Now we go to the service exports. We have IT BPM that has been growing amazingly around the world. And we also have logistics. Those are the two main things for Sri Lanka. But we are also exploring markets in education to make Sri Lanka an education hub. We have started promoting Sri Lanka for Buddhist education. And the countries in the Far East, including Japan, are very interested in coming to Sri Lanka for education, and especially from the non-English speaking countries. They like to come to Sri Lanka to learn English and and Sri Lanka has a lot to offer. So these are the new opportunities that we have. And also, of course, the COVID has given us opportunities to get better market access through, we may not be going to trade fairs. However, we are exposed to those markets and trends much more today than we were 2 years ago. And that is with this video conferencing technology. I must tell you that a couple of months ago, we are working very closely with the foreign missions, and we were working with the South China Consulate, Sri Lankan Consulate in South China, who had a webinar with 12,000 participants. Now, this is amazing, unheard of. This weekend, I had webinars with 1,000 SMEs, and this webinar is surely going to exceed 1,000 people. Now, these are not were not heard of 2 years ago. So this is an opportunity for exposure and awareness. And if all of us come together, this post-COVID situation, the most key important thing is collaboration. I think if we all come together, the banks, the entrepreneur networks, the government, private sector associations, sector associations, everybody come together. I think we can make Sri Lanka a fantastic export hub. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dimel. Few take-ups from your presentation. You spoke about value addition and also about the bulk shipments. And then you spoke about this branding and quality assurance compliance with whatever the requirements of the buyers. So these are some keynotes that we exporters should definitely have if he's going to export. But there is one thing that we find SMEs. Most of the SMEs, we see that they do not have the required expertise in marketing and promoting their products. For example, they do not have the required knowledge in presenting their products to the international markets. So what type of facility that EDB has arranged or has for the SMEs to acquire these particular skills or knowledge?
Currently, for the agriculture sector, and also we are going to extend this to industrial sector as well, we have the concept of an export processing village, which is the village with, we also had a concept or there's an ongoing concept called one product, one village. And these are all opportunities for producers, rural, SME, small farmer producers to connect with export markets. All these villages and so on, we are doing them. They are connected to a market or an exporter. And that exporter has to transfer the technology, the quality requirements, everything to the producer. Now, this is where we are also going to have the export houses. And that Mr. Atula will talk about later. But this, to me, is the most important thing, is to bridge this gap between the supplier and the demand and make it exportable. So SMEs struggle with the quality requirement, with the volume requirement, and the price requirement, because they are not aware of international markets. If I was to give you an example, people talk every day about exporting turmeric. However, the international market for turmeric is 5 times less in price than in Sri Lanka at the moment. But during a few months ago, it was 10 times less. I mean, Sri Lankan price before COVID was 60 rupees a kilo. Today it is 300. And we cannot change prices like that in the international market. It is still 50 or 60 rupees in the international market. So this is where Sri Lankan small producers have to understand. Unfortunately, there is a tendency for SMEs, especially in the agriculture area, they calculate their profit based on sale price, not based on cost of production. Now, this is a key, because they think, oh, we have lost a lot of money because the sale price went down from 600 rupees a kilo to 500 rupees a kilo. However, their production cost is only 50 rupees a kilo. And they have made 10 times by selling it for 500. However, they look at the loss between the sales price. Now, this is the type of education that we need to give our SMEs if they are going to qualify for the international markets. I will quickly tell you, I mean, this is a key question that keeps coming up. The politicians and everybody want us to help the SMEs. Yes, we can. However, the SME has to also think of the market. What is the market requirement? Are they doing it in that way? Are they producing the quality that is required? Now, you see, when I was explaining recently that when a buyer comes to the EDB and wants a supplier, right? Obviously, EDB has to introduce a reputable supplier who has a track record. It's difficult for the EDB to say, here's a guy who just came in the door yesterday and wants to export cinnamon. And, you know, the buyer is not going to be too excited about somebody who has never exported before. So what I believe needs to happen is that small exporters need to collaborate with small producers need to collaborate with existing exporters. And the existing exporters also need to help the small, because we have a world market. We don't need to compete within Sri Lanka. We have a huge world market, right? The exporter, even if the small producer becomes an exporter himself, he must try not to compete with with another Sri Lankan. He must try to compete with the rest of the world and go to a different market without competing with a market that he was supplying through someone else. So that's the kind of thing that needs to happen to develop SME. And then we develop the collaboration that is necessary to take the SME to the export market directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dimal. You clearly mentioned what needs to be really done. So there is one question that I take it off the chat box. What they say is cost of freight is very high today from shipping, if you have to ship out from Sri Lanka. So how could the EDB help exporter to compromise, because he needs to compete with the other parties, other shippers that come from various other destinations. So today, shipping cost has increased tremendously from Sri Lanka. So what methods or what ways the EDB or the state can help for the exporters to compromise this particular cost?
Yes. Now, what the EDB has done is we've had several webinars and we have ongoing webinars where we bring all the stakeholders together, the shippers, the port authority, the other stakeholders, exporters, everybody come together. We have usually once we had 100 participants, and all of them discuss these issues. One is the lack of containers. One is the freight cost. Okay, now the freight cost is an international issue. All countries are going through this situation today, not only Sri Lanka. And the reason for this is that there has been a trade shift during COVID, where somehow or another, the supply and demand has changed. And that's what we are all struggling with. So there isn't enough space in ships now. And that's part of the reason we have the container issue. So this is an ongoing discussion on how to cope with this situation. Actually, the freight cost in itself is something that other countries also dealing with, so we don't have a situation with our competitors. Okay, but the container issue, now that is an issue that is that Sri Lanka, it's just the way Sri Lanka is. We are a small country, and India is right next door to us. People bypass Sri Lanka and go to India. So now we have to make our ports and harbors more attractive to attract more vessels to come here. So for that we have to increase exports also, right? The more exports increase and the more Sri Lanka becomes an export hub, then we will get enough ships coming into Sri Lanka with enough space. So I guess there isn't, and one thing we have to do is to understand how to cope with this situation. And that is what EDB is helping people with, to understand the realities of this. And this is not something that the government or authorities can do by themselves. It's an international issue.
Thank you, Mr. Dimal. Just one more quick one that has come off the chat again. What is the most efficient mean to find a buyer for any intended product? Example, exporting of eggs. How does that work out, Mr. Dimal?
Now we have, of course, the way, again, you have to build a relationship. Whatever you do, in order to have a sustainable market, you have to build a relationship. So you have to get out there in the market and find a buyer, and, so it's very difficult. I mean, today we have the internet. Now, 40 years ago, when I started my own, we had to go abroad. We had to go to markets to learn anything. Today, everything is online. And I encourage people now, even the EDB website is full of information. And if somebody wants some information on market intelligence on specific products, we can do that. Say, we can say which countries are buying eggs for what price and things like that. But at the end of the day, the exporter has to develop a relationship with the buyer. The EDB can maybe say there are buyers here, these are the list of buyers. I mean, on our website, you can find buyers. But somehow the exporter has to have a nice website, tell a story, brand their product. Now, EDB also helps people to brand their product. If they have a good product, we help them with branding it, okay, and marketing it. And we provide the market access information for them. So I think the key is to find, online, you can find where are the good prices, what's the quality that is required, what are the volumes that are required, and then I think building a relationship will be easy. And my recommendation, of course, like before, was to work with a current exporter and understand the quality requirements first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dimel. There are lot of questions lined up for you. I would take it up during the Q&A. So thank you very much for your insights. Thank you very much. Moving forward, I would like to introduce the next panelist, Mr. Atula Idrisinghe. Is the founder managing partner of Strategic Management Alliance, a business development consultant successfully promoting export business to Japanese and Middle Eastern companies. His business experience extends over 35 years. He had undertaken consultancy assignments to the Export Development Board of Sri Lanka and the Ministry of Industry and Trade, Jordan. His business exposure in Japan extends to Japanese corporates such as Mitsui Sumitomo, Mitsubishi Corporation, Mazda Corporation, Hino Motors Japan, Motors Limited, and many more. He is the past president of Justica Japan, Sri Lanka Technical and Cultural Association, and a trustee of Justica Trust. He designed and conceptualized the export house concept and export development strategy to develop SMEs in Sri Lanka. I cordially invite Mr. Idrisinghe for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lorian. I would like to run the presentation, multimedia presentation, but I will take it not in this format so that the full screen is visible. This is a briefing for SMEs and other exporters on behalf of Commercial Bank of Ceylon Limited, and the presentation for entrepreneurs aiming to enter export market and those who wish to cater for the new export demand. My presentation will cover 3 areas. First, advice to new entrepreneurs planning to enter export market, which I would like to comment in Sinhala. Then I will move on to some post-COVID-19 openings in the export markets. Then how proposed export houses can help SMEs. Now, අපනයන වෙළඳපොළට පිවිසීමට අදහස් කරන නව ව්‍යවසායකයන්ට උපදෙස් අපිට විකල්ප දෙකක් තියෙනවා. දේශීය වෙළඳපොළ තුළ හොඳින් ස්ථාපිත නිෂ්පාදන සේවාවක් ඇති අය, ඒ කියන්නේ දැනටමත් ලෝකල් මාකට් එකේ හොඳට ස්ථාවරත්වයක් ලබාගෙන ඇති භාණ්ඩයක් ඇති අය. අනිත් අය දෙවෙනි කොටස තමයි විදේශ වෙළඳපොළ තුළ පිළිගන්න ඇති නව නිෂ්පාදන අදහසක් ඇති අය. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ අයගේ අදහසක් තියෙනවා, හොඳ අදහසක්. ඒ අයට විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවා ඒ අදහස ක්‍රියාත්මක කෙරුවොත් ඒ අයට විදේශීය වෙළඳපොළට යන්න පුළුවන් ඇති කියලා. ඒ කොටස් දෙක අරමුණු කරගෙන තමයි මේ කොටස මම කතා කරන්නේ. ඔබට ගත හැකි පියවර මොනවද? දැන් ඔබට හොඳ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක් තියෙනවා නම් මේක ඔබට පුළුවන් හැකියාව, ඔබට විශ්වාස නම් මේක පිටරට වෙළඳපොළකට ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. අපි උදාහරණයක් අරගමු, සරල උදාහරණයක්. ඒකට ඔබට තේරුම් ගන්න ලේසි නිසා මම මේ විශේෂ උදාහරණයක් නෙවෙයි සරල උදාහරණයක් හැටියට ගේන්නේ. දැන් ඔබ නූඩල්ස් නිෂ්පාදනය කරන කෙනෙක් කියලා හිතන්න. ඔබ දැනට නූඩල්ස් නිෂ්පාදනය කරනවා. දැන් ඔබේ නූඩල්ස් ලංකාවේ සෑහෙන ප්‍රමාණයක් තුරට ඔබ විකුණගෙන යනවා. ඔබට ඩිමාන්ඩ් එකක් තියෙනවා. දැන් ඔබට පිටරට විදේශ වෙළඳපොළ ගැන ඔබ ගැන බලාපොරොත්තුවක් තියෙනවා නම් ඔබට කරන්න පුළුවන් පළවෙනිම පියවර තමයි අපනයනය කරන මිතුරෙකුත් එක්ක කතා කරන්න. ඔබේ මිතුරන් නැති අපනයනය කරන අය. ඒ එක්කෙනෙක්ට කතා කරලා බලන්න මගේ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එක මේකයි මේක මට අවස්ථාව ඔයා හිතනවාද මට මේක පිටරටකට ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා. ඊළඟට ඔබේ අදහස් ගැන ඔබ ප්‍රදේශයේ බැංකු කළමනාකර මහතාටත් කතා කරන්න. ඉතින් ඔබ බැංකු කළමනාකර මහතාට කීප දෙනෙක්ම හමු වෙනවා අපනයන ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ නියැලි වෙලා ඉන්න අය. ඒ නිසා බැංකු කළමනාකර මහතාට ඔබට අදහසක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඔබේ නිෂ්පාදනයේ පිටරට ගෙන යාම ගැන අවශ්‍ය රුකුල් කීපයක් ඔබට දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඔබ කමර්ෂල් බැංකුවේ කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක් නම් ඔබේ බ්‍රාන්ච් එකේ මැනේජර්ත් එක්ක කතා කරන්න. ඊළඟට ඔබ කල්පනා කරලා බලන්න අපනයන වෙළඳපොළට වෙන් කළ හැකි තරම් නිෂ්පාදන ධාර්තාවක් තියෙනවද කියලා. ඒකත් හුඟක්ම වැදගත්. ඒ මොකද අපි දැනට අපි ලෝකල් මාකට් එකේ බඩුවක් සප්ලයි කරනවා නම් ඒ මාකට් එකටත් අපි සප්ලයි කරන්නේ හුඟක් අමාරු වෙන අපේ ධාරිතාව සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම පිරලා තියෙනවා නම් විදේශ වෙළඳපොළ ගැන හිතනක ටිකක් ඒ තරම් නුවණට උහුරු නැහැ මේ අවස්ථාවේදී. ඔබට ඒ නිෂ්පාදන ධාරිතාව වැඩි කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඒ දේ ගැන කල්පනා කරුවට කමක් නැහැ. ඒකට ඊළඟට අපනයන වෙළඳපොළට ඇතුළු වීම ගවේෂණය කිරීමට සහ කාලය මිලංගු කරන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඒකම සම්පත් කිරීම කැප කිරීමත් ඇති හැකියාවක් ඔබට තියෙන්න ඕන. ඔබට අපනයන වෙළඳපොළට යනකොට මේ ලංකාවේ එක වෙළඳපොළක ප්‍රදේශයක ඉඳන් තව ප්‍රදේශයකට බඩුවක් විකුණන්න යනවා වගේ නෙවෙයි. මේක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම අලුත් රටකට ඔබට යන්න වෙන්නේ. ඒක නිසා ඔබට හුඟක් වේදන් දරන්න වෙනවා. සෑහෙන ප්‍රමාණයක් වේදන් දරන්න වෙනවා. ඔබගේ සම්පත් කැප කිරීමට ඔබට හැකියාවක් තියෙන්න ඕන. ඊළඟට ඒ භාණ්ඩයේ විදේශ වෙළඳපොළට ගැලපීම පිළිබඳ යම් වෙළඳ පරීක්ෂණයක් කිරීම ඔබ සැලසුම් කළ යුතුයි. ඒකත් හුඟක්ම වැදගත් වෙනවා. මොකද ඔබට භාණ්ඩයක් තිබුණත් එහෙම නැත්නම් භාණ්ඩයක් නිෂ්පාදනය කරන අදහසක් තිබුණත් එය ඔබ වෙළඳපොළක් ගැන කල්පනා කරනකොට ඒ වෙළඳපොළට ඒ භාණ්ඩය ගැලපෙන්නේ නැත්නම් ඔබ කරන උත්සාහය ඒ තරම් සාර්ථක වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා ඔබ කලින් කළ යුතු දෙයක් තමයි මේ වෙළඳපොළට ගැලපෙනවද නැද්ද කියන යම් වෙළඳ පරිශ්‍රණයක් ඔබ කළ යුතුයි. ඊළඟට ඔබට නිෂ්පාදන ධාරිතාව පුළුල් කිරීමට සිදු වෙනවා නම් ඔබට ආයෝජනය කිරීමට අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඒක ඔබේ හිතේ තබා ගත යුතුයි. එතකොට මේ භාණ්ඩයේ ස්වභාවය, ඇසුරුම් ක්‍රම, ලේබල් කිරීම යනාදී වෙනස් කිරීමට ඔබට සිදු විය හැකියි. දැන් ඔබ යම් ක්‍රමයකට ඔබේ වාජනයේ ඔබේ භාණ්ඩයේ ඇසුරුම් ක්‍රමයක් තියෙනවා නම් පැකේජින් කරනවා නම් ඒක සමහරවිට ඔබට වෙනස් කරන්න වේවි. ඒ ඔබ දැනට තියෙන ලේබල් එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වෙනස් කරන්න වෙනවා. ඒ වගේ මේ භාණ්ඩයේ ස්වභාවය වෙනස් කරන්න ඔබට නිතරම සූදානම්ෙන් සිටිය යුතුයි. ඒක අත්‍යවශ්‍ය දෙයක්. ඊළඟට සමහර භාණ්ඩවල හා සේවාවන්ට විදේශ වෙළඳපොළ තුළ විවිධ සංස්කෘතික වෙනස්කම් තිබිය හැකියි. මේක උගාක්ම වැදගත් අපි අදහස් අපි ඔළුවට ගන්න ඕන දෙයක්. දැන් විශේෂයෙන්ම දැන් ওই මස් මාංශ අපනයනය කිරීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන හා කරන අය ඒගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා දැන් මැද පෙරදිග රටවල් වලට හලාල් නොවේ නම් අපනයනය කරන්නට බෑ. එතකොට ඒක දෙයක්. එතකොට ඊට අමතරව තවත් තියෙනවා සමහර රටවල් වල තියෙනවා ඒ අයගේ සංස්කෘතික හේතුන් අපේ රටට නොගැලපෙන දේවල් තියෙනවා. මට ඒක උදාහරණයක් කියන්න පුළුවන්. මම මීට වසර ගණනාවකට ඉස්සර මගේ ආයතනයක් තිබුණා. මම ඒකෙන් සැහැල්ලු සෙල්ලම් බඩු soft toys මම අපනයනය කෙරුවා. මම මේව අපනය කෙරුවේ ස්කැන්ඩිනේවියන් රටවල් වලට. එක අවස්ථාවක මට ඇනෝමක් ලැබුණා. කියන්නේ ඊටාම වැඩි මුදල වටිනාකමින් වැඩි ඇනෝමක් ලැබුණා. පිරිමි ළමයෙකුත් ගෑනු ළමයෙකුත් සෙල්ලම් බඩු දෙකක් හදන්න ඒ අය නිර්වස්ත්‍රව සිටින හැටියට කිසිම ඇඳුමක් නැතුව නිර්වස්ත්‍ර ස්වභාවික විදිහට මේක හදන්න. දැන් ඔබට හිතා ගන්න පුළුවන් දැන් මෙවැනි භාණ්ඩයක් අපේ ෆැක්ටරි එකට අරන් ගියාම අපේ සුපර්වයිසර් කෙනෙකුට අපි බාර දුන්නාම ප්‍රොඩක්ෂන් කෙනෙකුට බණක් දුන්නාම මේක ටිකක් සංස්කෘතිකව මෙතන පොඩි ප්‍රශ්න වලට අපි මුහුණ දෙනවා. නමුත් අත්‍යවශ්‍යයෙන් මේක කමර්ෂල් ඇක්ටිවිටි එකක් නිසා අපි වැඩ කරන සේවකාණේකේ නියම විදිහට වැඩේ බාරගත්තා. කරගෙන අපි ඇනෝම අපි පිටරට යවුවා. ඒක අපි තා සාර්ථකව කෙරුවා. ඉතින් තමුන් ඒ සංස්කෘතික වෙනස්කම් වලට මුහුණ දෙන්න සූදානම් විය යුතුයි. ඊළඟට අපනයනේ නිෂ්පාදනය සඳහා හොඳ හා ස්ථාවර ගුණාත්මක ප්‍රමිතියක් තිබිය යුතුයි. දැන් මේ EDB සභාපතිතුමා කිව්වා ඒක අත්‍යවශ්‍යයි කියලා අපිට ඒ ස්ථාවර ගුණාත්මක ප්‍රමිතියක් තියෙන එක ඉතාමත්ම අවශ්‍යයි. නැත්නම් බාහිර පිටරට වෙළඳපොළවල අපිට ඇතුල් වෙන්න අවස්ථාවක් ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් භාණ්ඩ අපනයනයට විදේශයේ නැව්ගත කිරීම පිළිබඳ සුදුසු දැනුමක් ලබා ගැනීමට සිදුවේ. මේක මම විස්තර කරන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. මේක අත්‍යවශ්‍ය දෙයක්. ඒ වගේම අපනයන ලියකියවිලි ණයවර ලිපි වැනි ගෙවීම් ක්‍රම පිළිබඳව ඔබ පුරුදු විය යුතුයි. ඔබගේ බැංකු කළමනාකාරතුමාගෙන් එය දැනගන්නට පුළුවන්. මේ ඉලක්කයන් ඒකම තමුන් මේ බඩ භාණ්ඩය අපනයන කරන්නට යන රටේ තියෙන අවශ්‍යතා පිළිබඳව ඔබ යම් දැනුමක් ලබා ගැනීමට සිදු වෙනවා. සමහර විට ඒ රටේ සමහර විට මේ භාණ්ඩය ආනයන කරන රටේ තියෙන්න පුළුවන් නීති රීති. සමහර විට ලයිසන්ස් අවශ්‍ය වෙයි. මේ දේ ගැනත් ඔබ දැනුවත් විය යුතුයි. ඊළඟට ඉන්පසු ඔබේ නිෂ්පාදනයේ ජාත්‍යන්තරයේ ඉල්ලුම සොයා බැලීමේ මූලික පියවර ලෙස වෙළඳ ප්‍රදර්ශනයකට හෝ ගණන්කරුවන්ගේ විකුණුම් හමුවට සහභාගී වීම ගැන සලකා බැලිය යුතුයි. මේක සභාපතිතුමත් ඔබට සඳහන් කෙරුවා. මේ අදහස් ඔබේ තියෙන්න ඕන. ඔබ මේ ගැන වඩාත්ම සැලකිලිමත් විය යුතුයි. ඊළඟට භාණ්ඩයේ සාම්පලයක් සකස් කිරීම ඔබේ ඊළඟ පියවර කරගන්න. සාම්පලයක් නිෂ්පාදනය කරලා ඒ වෙළඳපොළට යෑමට සූදානම් වෙන්න. ඉහත සූදානම් වෙන පසු දැන් ඔබට අපනයන සංවර්ධන මණ්ඩලයේ හමු වීමට පුළුවන්. මේක තමයි මගේ පළවෙනි කොටස. මම ඊළඟට යන්නම් මගේ දෙවෙනි කොටසට. ඒ කියන්නේ some beyond COVID-19 business opportunities in the export markets. අපනයන වෙළඳපොළේ COVID-19 හේතුවෙන් ඇති වී ඇති අලුත් අවස්ථා කිහිපයක්. මෙම කොටස මම ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන් කරන්න. ඒ මොකද මොකක් අය දැනට එක්ස්පෝර්ට් කරන අය නිසා. දැන් similarities in product demand in several markets. For example, there are several markets where the product demand is somewhat similar post-COVID. If you look at Japan, Singapore, countries like Jordan and United Arab Emirates, and also Scandinavian countries, we find similarity in the product demand that it arisen after COVID-19. Then one of the most important things we have to understand is the e-commerce. E-commerce is gathering momentum worldwide. I don't have to explain what e-commerce is, but very briefly I will tell you. E-commerce is selling the product without physical contact. You sell it through internet. The buyer may be in another country, seller in another country. You display your product through internet. You have the system of marketing the product, collecting the money through internet. But of course, one specific disadvantage is when you do e-commerce or e-marketing, you will not be able to see the physical product. There are instances in e-commerce business, there are a lot of returns. That is accepted. But considering the benefits accrue to the consumer and the seller, e-commerce is gathering a lot of momentum worldwide. Take, for example, I'm using Japan as an example because we can't talk about many countries within the limited time. Now, Japan has 126 million population. You see from 2019, from this graph, from the chart, you can see 2021, 17.2% of the population, 22 million people, are only purchasing their requirements through e-commerce. You see it increased from 2019, 2021 with COVID, it's increasing and it's increasing further. Signs are they estimate in the year 2022, it might reach 22%. So can you imagine the shift of demand for e-commerce? Now, post-COVID export market has created new e-commerce opportunities for Sri Lankan SMEs. Now, this is a blessing in disguise for our Sri Lankans. Let's go into some of these examples. Now, there is an opportunity in e-commerce for SMEs in Sri Lanka. What are these advantages? What are these opportunities? Small order quantities. Kuda pramane anavum. The reason is the e-commerce company who are doing e-commerce, they will have to have a central warehouse. This central warehouse will have to be located in a central location. You see in countries like what I mentioned, the warehouse space is very expensive. So they need to have the optimum space displaying the maximum number of products. Therefore, the e-commerce companies prefer not to keep shiploads of products. They don't want to keep 3-4 containers like the normal traditional business. They will order small quantities. This is a tailor-made situation for Sri Lanka, for our Sri Lankan SMEs. Then the use of natural materials. You know, there's a shift for natural materials from artificial materials now after COVID. A lot of buyers, consumers prefer not to deal in too much of plastics, polythenes, polymers. They prefer to use the natural material, like the paper or the natural, the cloth, whatever natural products are being, even for packaging material, they want to use a natural, and raw materials. They prefer the natural raw materials rather than using raw materials which are pre-processed. Then environment-friendly packaging, parisara hitakami asarum, that I don't have to explain. And today, people are moving away from plastics and they want to have a very simple environmental-friendly packaging. Then retail packs. Now, e-commerce companies can't expect you can't expect to ship in a cartoon. We'll say you put 48 boxes, no individual packing, you just put the product and send it. No, that is accepted in the traditional forms of commerce. But in e-commerce, you need to make every item a retail pack. You have to pack them in their cartoon as a retail pack so that when it goes to e-commerce company warehouse, they might get an individual order from a housewife and they pick up that order and hand over to the courier company to deliver. So the retail packs are important. Then this creates another very important avenue for us, able to maintain the original identity and branding, especially for our SMEs. When they do retail packs using environmental friendly packaging, they can establish their own brand name. Because the quantities are small, no buyer will want to have their franchise name embedded into your product because it will be very cumbersome for them to do for small quantities. So you can take the advantage of original identity and branding. Then what are the potential products for SME, Sri Lankan SMEs now? I'm considering the demand which we have studied in 5 countries, but I'm taking Japan as the example. First, I would talk about the ready-to-eat food. Pan-ready fish. What is pan-ready fish? See, when we go to a fish market or when we go to a supermarket, we see on a shelf, there is whole fish. They are not pan-ready. But in Europe and also in Japan, in Singapore, all these countries, after COVID, they all prefer to have pan-ready fish. That is, it has to be filleted or cleaned, preserved, and in a pack, which is ready for the housewife to open the pack and put into the pan. Now, talking about sea and freshwater fish, we have a huge opportunity around us. I think the Mr. Suresh Timel, Chairman EDB, also mentioned about our fish. Ladies and gentlemen, our fish die of old age, whereas we import fish and we make sardines sometimes by using imported fish, but we have plenty of fish available. But we have to find a value addition, as Chairman mentioned, is the most important thing. We need to find ways and means of adding value to bring it to the table. Now, to look at our freshwater fish, we have abundance of reservoirs in our country. Some dry during the off-season, others retain the water through the year. And we have, if you go towards these areas in Anuradhapura, Polonnaru, even Dunugahambera areas, in the morning when you go, you see boats coming in with loads of local fish. The carps, you get tilapia, you get different varieties. You can even get things like luna, which has a tremendous demand overseas. All these fish, if we have a way of adding value, fillet them, freeze them, pack them, and bring it to the marketplace, I think we have a very wide open market. Similarly, meat, fresh vegetables, fruits and nuts. I don't need to go into a lot of details. Kitul honey and treacle. These unprecedented demand for kitul honey and treacle in these countries. They have found out the medicinal values of these products. And before, a lot of pharmaceutical companies are trying to make tablets and capsules. Now the SMEs in other countries, they are developing capsules and tablets. So think kitul honey capsule for a resident individual to open a bottle and take a capsule in the mouth. You see, if we need to develop these products and we need to go into the market in readiness with value addition. Coconut water, instant noodles, then of course healthcare products, medical gloves. Of course, these will have to be manufactured by the companies who have the manufacturing capability. Face mask is different. Today, in countries like Japan, there's a demand for face masks, which are like, you can personalize your design. And these products can be marketed through e-commerce ventures very easily with your own brand name. Then the personal protective clothing and equipment, wheelchairs, walkers, then special footwear, cotton shopping bags or supermarkets. Now I told you about 20% of the consumers do e-commerce. Others still go to supermarkets. then they don't want, after COVID, they don't want to have these plastic polythene bags. They don't want to have them. They want a bag, a cotton bag, which the housewife can bring home, take the items in from the bag, put into the washing machine, then is ready to take it to the shop next time. Or it will be given by the shop the next time. Then, of course, there's advantage for linen kits for elders' homes. In Japan, there are a lot of about 45% of their population is elderly people. So they need linen kits, which Sri Lankan SMEs can produce without much difficulty by using cotton. Then this is the miracle product I'm talking now, immune boosting products in capsule, tablet, bottle, or Tetra Pak form. Bees honey, I talked about bees honey before, coconut water, cinnamon, moringa, pomegranate, delum, then soursop, katu anoda, and jackfruit. And all these products we have in Sri Lanka. We can create, or we can do home gardens. We can develop these things in our regions easily if we can get these products together. And it is very important that just because we have the product, we mustn't be complacent and say, we can't export jackfruit as a fruit to another country. No, we need to talk to organizations like Industrial Technology Institute, that is our Karmika Takshana Ayatane, or we have to talk to a food science department, science and technology department of any of our universities. Ahara Vidya ha Takshana Departamento. We have it in Peradeniya, Sri Jayawardenepura and Vayam University. We must talk to them and find out how this product can be manufactured in such a way it can reach the end consumer or through the e-commerce or any other means. Then possible e-commerce buyers in Japan for immune boosters. I have obtained this with a lot of responsibility from some recent inquiries. Japanese companies like Ajinomoto, Meiji, Marubishi, Japan Tea Company, Japan Green Tea Company, Cherio and Company, they are all interested in this product, particularly in bottle form or in a Tetra Pak form. So this is something we must very seriously think about. Then, of course, we have the next is opportunity in supply manpower, caregivers. An unprecedented demand in Japan. They need over 400,000 caregivers by the end of next year. Who are caregivers? They are not trained nurses. They are people who are able to handle the needs of an elderly person, like taking them to a toilet and training them to do that, and taking them to a bathroom and giving them a bath. Maybe that you have to transfer them from a wheelchair to a bed, and there will be a list of prescribed medicine that's to be given. But we have enough people who can be trained for this purpose. We have organizations who are engaged in sending people to the Middle East. This is opportunity for them. Train them for caregiving purposes. But of course, it's important that they should have the language ability. The basic language knowledge can be obtained from 2 exams of JLPT exam in Japan. If they pass 2 subjects, 2 bottom line exams, they can communicate in Japanese. So with that language, if we can send these people to Japan, I will tell you, minimum of 300,000 rupees per month salary they can earn. Then this is my third and final briefing. It's about the export house concept and how it will help SMEs. Now, this export house concept is designed considering the success stories in countries like Japan, Korea, Malaysia. Not only that, this was successful in other countries like Thailand, Vietnam, and also in India. So this concept, this export house will procure from SMEs and export SME products and services to global market. In short, that is what they will do. They will procure from the SMEs and export their products to global market. But in doing that, they will buy from SMEs engaged in local agri-farming and fishery industry, producers and manufacturers of other exportable goods, service providers, and from export villages. Chairman mentioned about the export villages. They will buy from them. Then what will they do? How it will help SMEs? A question was raised a little while ago. How can you find export market? Finding market for SME products overseas will be the responsibility of the export house, because the person who initiates the export house will be a person who has a strong networking ability in foreign countries or in a foreign country. He will have the relationships already established so many companies. So he is in a position to come as an intermediary and let the SME know the requirement of the international market and get the product produced. So by doing that, it will enhance production of SME products. SMEs will receive a fair price for their products, especially when you cater for the export market. Export markets is a lucrative market. It's a competitive but a lucrative market, but that will eventually give a better price to the SME who's producing the product. And this will also result in uplifting the lifestyle of SMEs. Now, there are 4 categories we have identified as to be recognized as export houses. 1, new independent export companies set up to procure from SMEs. Their job will be what I mentioned earlier. They will identify the product, go to SMEs who are producing, buy from them, and they will add value if necessary. They will standardize the product if necessary, make it export ready and export. That's the first category. Then the second category is any existing enterprises that are currently exporting products of third parties. Now already we have in Sri Lankan companies who are exporting vegetables, who are exporting pineapples. They are already doing that. We want the government to recognize them also as export houses. Third is the most important part, ladies and gentlemen. You will recollect during the era of 1977-81, how our garment industry came into existence. Our garment industry was supported by an organization called buying houses. These buying houses, people who manage buying houses had the foreign contacts. They negotiated orders for the foreign buyers, transferred these orders to local factories and concluded the deals. It's the same concept we are suggesting. The trading enterprises located within Sri Lanka, which will create foreign markets on commission basis for SMEs to engage in direct exports. So the SME will export directly, whereas the trading enterprise will support the SME by giving the input, know-how, knowledge, labels, whatever you call it, give all the support, and they'll take the product, they'll encourage them to export directly, whereas the SME become the foreign exchange earner. Then, of course, indirect exporters, who are the suppliers of agricultural produce, fishery products, manufactured goods, or any exportable product to or service to export houses. Those who supply to export houses, we want them to be treated as indirect exporters. Then I will briefly run through the role of export houses. I won't go into details. They act as a marketer for SME products and services in overseas markets. They represent SME manufacturers, producers, ICT service providers. If it is a product is ICT service, locally, a local programmer will develop a program, but the export house will market it and represent it. Then study of overseas market competitiveness and gather market intelligence. They'll engage in foreign market penetration for SME products. They will know how to do that. They will know which market to have access to in which way. Then export houses will use strategies such as representations, as I mentioned before, product demonstration where necessary. Right now, we are in a COVID-19 situation. Everything is online. But this situation is not going to continue forever. Sooner or later, these conditions are going to change. And I know certain markets, buyers still believe in face-to-face contact. So product demonstration where necessary. They will either take the product for demonstration if it's possible, travel is possible. Otherwise, they will send the product across to the foreign country and one of their nominees will demonstrate the product to the buyer. Then the business-to-business meeting, the most important aspect in export marketing is B2B meetings. Then participations at exhibitions with SME products. So these are the role, some of the strategies they will adopt. Then they provide expertise in operation and logistics management. I told you before, export house will tell the SME how to produce, which way to produce, what quality to be obtained, and what form of packaging. All the advice will be given to them. Then sustainability and continuous ordering for SMEs. You see, when you are a SME, when you export one product, you can't look up and wait till the buyer gives the next order. You need to get ready for the next order and the next and the next. So you have to be sustainable. So this is the role of the export house. Then, of course, risk mitigation. the manufacturer SME will manufacture the good and give it to the export house. If export house is exporting directly, all risks associated with the product will be taken by them. We have asked some concessions from the government. We are glad that Mr. Suresh Dimel, Chairman EDB, had fully supported this concept when we worked out this concept. And we are now requesting the government to give investment relief for capital expenditure, example, stores, cold rooms, reefer trucks, because most of these products will require investment by the export house. Cold rooms and reefer trucks. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I could not mention, we talked about freshwater fish, the capacity Sri Lanka will have and which can develop. You say today in Vietnam, freshwater fish exports have reached $11 billion. It's more than our apparel exports in Sri Lanka. We do about $8 billion apparel exports, but Vietnam, freshwater fish alone has reached $11 billion. And that is all going to the Middle Eastern market, European market, Japanese market. So we have, our kings have built the reservoirs and given us. It has water. God has given us the water. Right? All what we want to do is to propagate more the fish in these tanks and prepare them and export and earn money. It's 100% raw material. We don't have to import anything like the apparel trade or anything else. This is something we have to very seriously take into consideration. I'm sorry I deviated from the point. Then we have asked a 5-year tax holiday from the first year of profits and support from the EDB. Export houses, we are asking for investment criteria of 1 million rupees to be invested, and that's all. And with that, they can register themselves as an export house. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I have not rushed through what I have communicated with you. And if you have any questions, we will be happy to answer. And also, if the time is not permitting adequately, you can always take up your questions with the commercial bank, or you can also contact me if necessary. And if you are contacting me, keep commercial bank also on copy. We'll try to help you. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Mr. Idrisingh. It was a wonderful insight of the export house concept. That is something unique, and we really have thought of this. I think from today onwards, there's something, as you said earlier, the garment industry has worked on these merchandisers who operate and distribute their business to the garment factories. So this is something that the concept is almost similar to that, and which will pave way for our agri exporters and all the other exporters who do it small time, for them to come up big. And we at Commercial Bank are very much there to help these micro SMEs to come up from micro to SME, and SMEs to come up to large exporters. A bank which has been in 100 years has taken through many exporters in this journey, and we have proved it. So coming back to the first question that I want to check on this, Mr. Idrisingh, you mentioned in your slide presentation that the overseas market research needs to be done. So, but there are some, most of the SMEs are unable to afford this particular overseas market research. So are there any institutions in Sri Lanka or government funded, government supported institution that could carry out at a lower cost?
Well, it is a very difficult question to answer, because there is, you see, in today's business, no one is doing things for free. So you have to retain various consultants to explore these markets. Then when you retain a local consultant, they also in turn will have to work with a foreign consultant. So there is that's a normal route, but which is expensive route. But there are other avenues of doing this. Now, one thing is, we must be grateful that our embassies, all our embassies have a commercial division. Our commercial attaches nowadays are very much, they are hands-on. They say if an exporter has a specific inquiry to get some intelligence about the market, I think one good way of communicating is with the embassy, and the commercial attaché, I'm sure, will help to get some information. Then, of course, the other possibility is to talk to EDB. EDB we might have, I'm sure Mr. Dimel will confirm, they will have wealth of information about markets. They have various links with CBI and various organizations, and they have wealth of information. That information can be used by the local SMEs. Plus, Department of Trade also have a trade portal, and they have an information desk. They can contact the Department of Trade and obtain information from them. So it is a mixed bag. It's very difficult to say you have to select this. But the best way is to retain a consultant overseas, which is an expensive assignment for a beginner. So therefore, I would suggest that he takes the second, third, and fourth rules, what I mentioned. Thank you.
Okay. I think Mr. Dimel wants to say something.
I would like to second what Mr. Atula said. There is a lot of information, and we are working very closely with the foreign missions, and the foreign missions are very active. I have maybe 3 meetings every week with different foreign missions. The ambassadors themselves are involved in marketing Sri Lankan products. So that link is much stronger now with these webinars and things like that. And I don't know if I mentioned that we had 12,000 participants in a webinar that we did in the Fujian region for South China.
Okay.
So we have a lot of opportunity that we did with the Consulate General of South China. So we have a lot of information that we can share.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Idrisingh, one more question, I think. There are concerns by our exporters stating that even though they take part in many exhibitions and exchange business cards with visitors, and even after sending emails, they do not get reply. In such a situation, how could you persuade your counterparts in the trade transaction to have an interactive negotiation?
So Samantha, I have been a victim of this in early days. You go for exhibition, you spend a lot of money. When you are SME, you don't have much money. You put a lot of money together with the help of VDB, you go for an exhibition and you display your products. You get hundreds of visitors coming. They give you a business card, they exchange, and that's it. Then they go away. Then we come back home and we convenient mode is doing emails. We keep on writing, but we don't get replies. So this is the normal form. So how do we counter this? You see, there are 3 ways of tackling this. One, now the country where you go for an exhibition, there are in most of these countries, take for instance, Japan, Singapore, if we talk about UAE, the Middle Eastern countries, Italy, European countries, UK, whatever the country, there are many Sri Lankans. So there are many Sri Lankans who speak the local language. Even go to Japan, there are people who speak local Japanese language. If you go to Italy, there are people who speak Italian language. So try to connect up with someone who is in that area who could help you in your booth. So when a visitor comes to your booth, we can nicely attire in a full suit and we can say, good morning, sir, and welcome them. But for a Japanese, if someone comes and greet them in Japanese in the morning and shake hands, that makes a world of a difference. So it's same with some of the European countries. It is with the Scandinavian countries also, it's the same thing. So when you go for an exhibition, try hard and try to contact a local person who's living in that country, who can speak the language and assist you. That is the first communication. Then, in that itself, you might be able to filter who is serious, who is not serious. Some people come. There are catalog hunters who come to collect catalogs. There are students who are doing research, they come to collect catalogs. They all pose as buyers and come and take your catalogs and go, but they are of no use. So if you have a person who speaks the local language, he will be able to assist you and help you a bit. One. Second, this person may be able to communicate in the local language even by email or by telephone and ask, okay, you visited our booth, thank you, and we do like the products. Keep the dialogue going. Maybe it might lead to a request for a sample. So that's a second. Third, of course, once you filter these contacts, if you find few contacts which are worthwhile, get the help of the embassy, as Mr. Dimel suggested. Commercial division of the embassy missions will be very helpful in connecting the parties and supporting. If everything fails, of course, you have to go for the final solution. You'll retain a consultant in that country and entrust the business and tell them, look, there are consultants, there are business development consultants who do this. They don't ask for money up front. They say, okay, If you do an export, say you do export for 100,000, you pay me 2 or 3% commission. That's a fair deal. You don't have to put your money upright. You work with such a person, share the context with him, come to an understanding that the context will be maintained secretively, and let that person do the marketing and promotion for you. And every time you get an export, pay him 2 or 3% commission. I know some companies in Sri Lanka who have done that, and they have got extremely good results. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You gave us a very clear understanding on that. Right. In the interest of time, I would like to go forward, and I would warmly welcome our AGM, Mr. B.H.A. Preena, who is our AGM Corporate Banking, who counts over 34 years of service in the bank and has served in both personal banking and corporate banking divisions. The major part of his banking career was at corporate banking division, starting as a relationship manager. In 2003, he was appointed as a chief operating officer of the Bangladesh operation when the bank acquired the Bangladesh operations of Credit Agricole Industries. In addition to the corporate banking division, he oversees the trade operations and the Islamic banking operations. Mr. Preena serves as the vice president of Associate Professional Bankers, APB Sri Lanka, and has served as an executive executive committee member of the International Chamber of Commerce. Over to you, Mr. Preena.
Thank you. Good evening. Warm welcome to all the participants as well as the panelists and my colleagues from the bank for this session on new opportunities for exporters. So on behalf of the board of directors and the management of Commercial Bank, very warmly welcome you to this session. So far it had been a very wonderful session with very valuable insights from our two guest speakers, the chairman of EDB, Mr. Suresh Dimel, and Mr. Atul Edrisinghe. I think all of us got a lot of things to learn, and some practical aspects of export business also was discussed. So I don't think we're actually in a very good time, and this is one of the opportune time to discuss about exports, because the country reeling from the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, where we see frequent lockdowns. And before that also we had this Easter bomb attack. So with that also the economy took some hit with the tourists stop coming to our country. And as you all know, in addition to exports, tourism also brings a sizable portion of foreign reserves to the country. So now there's a dent on that. The tourism, the income we got from the tourism has come to almost zero. And we hope that it will pick up soon with the vaccination drive going on successfully. And we hope that our country will get back to, gradually get back to the pre-COVID era. So then we will have that tourism income coming. So therefore, anyway, without that portion of the income coming, I think this is a very good time for us to focus on exports and see how best we can increase our share in this export. So I think successful governments also is paying a lot of attention on this, and the incumbent government also is taking various steps as described by Mr. Suresh Dimel to boost up exports. So as the largest private sector bank in this country, for having served the nation for over 100 years, Commercial Bank also has a responsibility as a national bank to help our exporters. As you all may know, Commercial Bank started as a trade bank. Our expertise from the beginning was trade. At one time, countries, 1/3 of countries' exports were routed through Commercial Bank. So even now, we have a 17% market share. We have 20-odd banks. So among that, 17% is a sizable market share in exports. So most of the largest exporters are with us, may it be apparel, tea, or any other commodity or any services we export. So Therefore, commercial bank has a lot of expertise in doing this. So with that, I will take you through my presentation today. Right, so my presentation will be about on 4 areas about us. As you all know, already commercial bank is not a stranger to all of you. So commercial bank, as I said, one of the largest private sector banks, and has specialist in import-export trade. So therefore, we are very comfortable in taking you through this journey and helping you to fill that, that gap, and to complete that chain between you and your buyer. We will stand in between and provide you some support, whatever support you need, and hold your hands in completing this transaction successfully, which we have done over the decades for the last 100 years or so. Then we will discuss about what are the facilities the bank can offer to our exporters, and the loans, what are the loan schemes available. Also, then finally, I will touch upon the SME facilitation. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have experts ready to serve you to solve any of your issues regarding exports. Mr. Suresh Dimel and Mr. Idris Singh also mentioned that, okay, you go to your bank, right? You go to the bank manager, closest bank manager, and seek his help. Then he will, if he, whatever possible help he will provide. If not, he will consult the head office experts in exports department and give you solutions for your finance needs. So we have tailor-made finance solutions, right, which will help you to facilitate your cross-border transactions. Also, we have our presence in Bangladesh, Myanmar, and also we have a worldwide network of over 1,300 correspondent banks spanning all over the continents, all over the globe, which are ready, who are ready to help you in your journey. In addition to the domestic banking facilities, we do offer offshore banking facilities depending on how your company has been set up. Then, as you all know, we are one of the most awarded bank in the country. So not only as the best bank, but as best trade finance bank, we have been awarded many times by various international agencies, which proves our expertise and our ability to help you all. So the export facilities we will run through. One facility is the advising of letters of credit and amendments. That is when we receive, if you are going to do a order on a LC basis, ණයවර ලිපියක් මාර්ගයෙන් කරන්න යනවා නම් අපිට ඒ ණයවර ලිපිය අපිට ලැබුණාම අපි එය සුදුසු ලෙස එය බලලා verify කරලා then we can advise the beneficiaries. Or if it is going to another bank, maybe our correspondent banks are sending it to us, then maybe we need to pass it on to another local bank. That service also will provide from our center. Then also confirmation of letters of credit. What is confirmation? Sometimes now say maybe you are negotiating to export something. Say example, take a country like say, okay, Bangladesh. Okay, so then what will happen? Say now, sometimes maybe you are doing business with that country and with that bank for the first time. So your buyer is issuing a letter of credit from that bank, or a particular bank in that country, say in Bangladesh, but you are not very comfortable about the payment. So therefore, you can come to commercial bank and say, look, I have got a LC, letter of credit from Bangladesh, whatever bank. Can you add your confirmation? So then we are taking that risk. We will go through that bank, and if we are satisfied that this bank is good, then we will add our confirmation so that our customer is having the comfort of commercial bank. Commercial bank is taking the risk to see that the payment he gets. So this is called the confirmation. Then in addition, we handle transferable letters of credit. We get letters of credit. So then that letters are based on that letter of credit that can be transferred to other beneficiaries locally. Then in addition, we handle collections, bills on collection. As you all know, most of our exporters, they deal not on LCs because the buyers don't like much to deal in LCs because the cost is very high. Therefore, most of the documents go on collection basis. So therefore, we can handle all these shipping documents and advise the exporters what are the documents needed. And also we can go through the documents and advise whether those are in order. And if there are any discrepancies or any improvements, our specialists can always help and then credit the proceeds upon receipt from the buyer's bank. Then in addition, another service we provide is giving status reports. Because if you find a buyer, maybe a new buyer, maybe you went for some exhibition and you found some buyers, then you strike a deal with them, but still you don't know really whether this person has the capability and the financial capacity and the integrity to go through the deal. So you can come to us and ask commercial bank to get a report on these buyers. අපි supply කරන ආයතනය හෝ පුද්ගලයා පිළිබඳව වාර්තාවක් නිකන් චරිත සාතිකයක් වගේ ඉල්ල ගන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට we will arrange it. We have our agencies. We are having connections with a lot of banks all over the world, and also we are with Dun & Bradstreet, one of the reputed rating credit agencies who provide these reports. Then through them we will collect a report, a very comprehensive report on the buyer, and give you look that okay, this buyer is like this, his financial capability and his standing is like this, so that it's up to you. You can decide whether to go ahead with the transaction. So that is another service we provide. Then the business loans, you know that the exporters, you start with a small capital, but that may not be sufficient for you to sustain the business and go through the transactions continuously, because your seed capital, what you put, then you need the bank help. Then we have so many facilities that we can offer. Then for exporters, we can maintain the foreign currency accounts, business foreign currency accounts, so that the exporters has this luxury of keeping your earnings in dollars in the domestic banking unit, because you export, you are direct exporters, you can keep your earnings in dollars. So for that, we can maintain the foreign currency, business foreign currency account, and you can convert whatever amount you need for your local expenses as and when required. Then foreign currency loans can be given, then also the business loans. Pre-shipment credit facilities. So now the exports fall into two stages. The pre-shipment stage is where you have to procure your whatever the raw material or whatever the goods before the export. You have to ready නැවගත කිරීමට පෙර facilities එහෙම නැත්නම් පහසුකම් බැංකු පහසුකම් අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඒ අවශ්‍ය අමුද්‍රව්‍ය එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ ද්‍රව්‍ය භාණ්ඩ එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කරන වියදම කම්කරුවන්ට හෝ තවත් නිෂ්පාදන නැත්නම් සේවාවන් ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා වියදම් දරන්න තිබුණා නම් ඒවා සකසා ගැනීම සඳහා බැංකු පහසුකමක් අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. That is what we call the pre-shipment credit facilities. So you can come with your order, you have a confirmed order, you come to the bank and you say that, okay, I got an order to say supply cinnamon to Mexico, and okay, I have done the deal. Now please give me whatever the facilities you can give based on this confirmed order. So based on that, we can give you the pre-shipment facility. Then using that money, you can procure your raw materials, then process it, and also meet other expenses to do the shipment. Okay, so you do the shipment, then comes the post-shipment stage, where now you have your shipment has gone, but sometimes you have to wait for months to get your money back, because you would have negotiated with your buyer. Okay, the buyer says that, okay, I will pay the money in 90 days time, 30 days time, 60 days time, or whatever. So, but you can't wait that long, because you need to process your next order. So it's a continuous process. It's a revolving facility. So therefore, you bring those documents to the bank, and we will going through the documents, and after being satisfied, we will arrange you to advance that money and provide you facilities so that we discount those bills and give you the cash required for your working capital requirement. So presently, you know that central bank has issued regulations that we can, because any exports coming into the country, 25% has to be converted into rupees compulsory. Therefore, we now allow 75% of the value of the documents as pre-shipment. We can give maximum 75 in foreign currency. Then the balance 25 also we can arrange in rupees as an advance if you need it. Then in addition, as I mentioned, we have offshore banking facilities for companies who are approved by Board of Investments, where we have all these export-oriented BOI areas like Katunayaka, Poggala, or wherever, and any other company who are set up under the BOI. For them, different set of rules apply, which are not applicable to the local businesses. So those, we maintain those offshore accounts. And also for non-resident companies, as well as even companies who are registered or incorporated outside Sri Lanka also, they can maintain banking accounts with our offshore banking division. In addition, we have these services. We handle foreign currency drafts, checks. If you want to get a draft issued, that we can arrange. Then we issue foreign exchange, then foreign drafts, because sometimes maybe you need to get down certain things on TT basis. Then your student payments and things you have to make in TT form. So those things we facilitate. Then also we process inward and outward remittances. So whatever remittances coming, we have a sizable market share in our inward remittances. The Sri Lankans who are working abroad in various countries, they bring a sizable amount of foreign currency. I think Asela will give you some insight into that. So we handle those inward remittances, and also if there are outward remittances made, that also we can facilitate. So that with that I cover the facility part. Then another important segment is the SMEs. Mr. Idrisinghe and Mr. Dimel also in their presentations mentioned this, that SMEs play a pivotal role in this Sri Lankan economy, and exports also same. So we, as a largest private sector bank and having a legacy of more than 100 years, and with a network of 268 branches, we are a pioneer in SME financing. So therefore, bank is working with many government as well as international organizations to help SMEs and we have provided many loans, and there are many credit lines to help our SMEs. And SMEs grow with us. They start small as small entrepreneurs, then they become SMEs, and most of them have then elevated to become corporates in this country. They started very small and they have successfully come up in their whatever business life, and with the bank, they have grown and progressed. So we have SME managers stationed in 14 regions. We have 14 regions the bank has. So in all 14 regions, we have SME managers who are specialists and who are ready to serve our small and medium enterprise customers. සුළුහා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ අපගේ කර්මාන්තකරුවන්ට, ඒ වගේම අපනයනකරුවන්ට දිරි දෙන්න, එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒගොල්ලන්ට උදව් කරන්න සැදී පැහැදී සිටින අපගේ මැනේජර්ස්ලා, ඒකටම අපි වෙන් කරපු ස්පෙෂලිස්ට් ඉන්නවා අපගේ සෑම branch එකම. Then we have 57 SME cluster branches, where in the high potential areas we have set up cluster branches so that they focus more on this SME sector. And also we have 19 specialized agriculture and microfinancing officers. අපගේ ඉන්න හොඳට පුහුණුව ලැබපු කෘෂි සහ අපගේ සුළු කර්මාන්ත පිළිබඳව දැනුමක් තියෙන, ඒ පිළිබඳව විශේෂඥ දැනුමක් තියෙන බැංකු ඔෆිසර්ස්ලා 19 දෙනෙක් සිටිනවා. අපේ මේ වගේ සුළු සහ මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ අපගේ කර්මාන්තකරුවන්ට අවශ්‍ය වෙලාවක ඕනෑම උපදෙසක් දෙන්නට. Then continuous training for the frontline staff we give and credit officers, so that they always we keep their technical skills sharpened and the knowledge on the SMEs. The facilities we can give for SMEs, there are a lot: working capital financing, and also term loans for investments. If you want to say buy a land and put up a building and buy machinery, so for all that we can give term loans. Then project financing, when you want to, you have idea to set up a project, the whole thing, you come up with your project report, discuss it with your bank manager, we can finance that. Our SME division, the specialist, will advise you what are the improvements to be done, what are the changes to be done to your project report, the way you do the financing. So we are ready to provide you the project financing. Then import-export financing is also there, because you need, as exporters, you need export. Sometimes maybe you need to import. Some of your raw material may be imported, like the apparel sector, and maybe your packaging sometimes may be coming from a foreign country. So then we can provide you the import facilities, and also machinery for the project if you need, that we can help you out. Then the distributor and supply chain financing also we do, because we know that when you are there, you have your suppliers as well as your buyers. So we can link all these, because some of these suppliers and buyers may be banking with us also. They may need financing, so that the entire chain we can support. Then what are the initiatives taken by a commercial bank for SME sector? We have a centralized evaluation center for evaluating SME proposals. So to speed up the process, we have a central point. ඒ කියන්නේ මධ්‍යගත අපගේ තියෙනවා මේ පහසුකම්, එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ බැංකු පහසුකම් ලබා දීම සඳහා එක මධ්‍යස්ථානයක් වගේ අපි සකස් කරලා තිනවා. එතනින් ඉතාමත් ඉක්මනින් මේ ඔබේ ණය පිළිබඳව සියලු දේවල් සොයලා බලලා කටයුතු කරනවා. So you need not go to branches sometimes. From one center it will be looked after. Then we have created a biz circle, that is one of the first of kind in Sri Lanka. All the SME businesses, the SME customers, we have brought into one sort of a forum, and we have set up a SME biz circle. So through that we provide various services. We advise them, then also we conduct sessions like this to increase their knowledge, and we connect various government organizations like EDB or any other relevant institutions, so that the SMEs can interact with them and get their services for their businesses, so that the bank will facilitate that. So that we do this B circle. Then we have launched the women banking initiative to support the women SMEs. That is also another important sector of the economy. Women SMEs are coming up, and commercial bank looking at that, we have set up a women banking division, so that that division will help the women entrepreneurs. අපගේ කාන්තා ව්‍යවසායකයන්ට උදව් කිරීමට දිරි දැන්වීම සඳහා අපි ඒ කාන්තාවන්ටම වෙන් වූ වෙනම branch එකක් වගේ අපි set up කරලා තිනවා මේ පිළිබඳව උපදෙස් ලබා දීම සඳහා. Then also we have various dedicated construction bank funding lines, credit lines to accommodate financial needs, because sometimes we get from ADB and various other donor agencies concessional credit lines, so that we will make available for our SMEs. Then we have the Biz Club, as I mentioned, so that Biz Club also will create new business opportunities and also pass special benefits to our SME clients. So especially during this moratorium time, SME, the pandemic time, we are given moratoriums to affected businesses to meet their debt obligations, and also through the central bank funded Saubhagya funding line. Also, we have supported a lot of affected businesses by extending their loan facilities, credit facilities, the time to repay, as well as giving concessions in loan scheme. Then also we have our own loan scheme, special loan scheme, bank funded COVID-19 support loan, as well as the Dirishakti COVID-19 support loan. And also we provide technical guidance and financial support. So our current strategy is going to be to encourage SMEs to reach global markets with the help of EDB and other various government organizations. Then opportunities for diversification also we will support our SMEs. Then from that, we try to contribute more towards the national economy as a national bank. So with that, I finish my presentation. Thank you very much for listening to this. And if there are any questions or anything to be discussed, we can take up at the question and answer the forum. Thank you, and over to you, Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Prina. You gave us the insights of all our products and services that trade could offer for an exporter, maybe a SME or a large-scale exporter. So we have all the tools that we can dish out. Just a quick thing, quick question, Prina. Mr. Prina, what you explained about the requirement of 75 and 25% conversion of out of the proceeds. Is there a timeline that we can retain this money, Mr. Prina?
Yes. According to the central bank guidelines, the exporters can keep this money for 1 month. So within 1 month or within 30 days, they need to convert this 25%. So earlier it was when the regulations came, it says that on the first day itself, when we receive the remittance, you have to convert the 25% to rupees and the balance can be kept in dollars. But later, central bank gave a further concession to the exporters. They gave a 30-day time frame, so within which they can get this money, within which they have to convert the 25% minimum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prina. So in the interest of time, I would go forward with the next panelist. It is a very important topic that he's going to discuss. Mr. Asala Vijay Sirivardhana is our AGM Treasury, who heads the Treasury Division. He counts for over 25 years in banking, out of which 22 years has been in Treasury operation with Commercial Bank and ICICI Bank. He has a wealth of knowledge and experience to guide us through the uncertain foreign exchange situations that we presently need to overcome. So my first question on the Q&A goes out to Mr. Vijay Sirivardhana. Mr. Vijay Sirivardhana, during the past few weeks, we saw the dollar skyrocketing to, I think there had been a certain time where the dollar was going around 230 to 235 levels before it got pegged down to 203 as at present. So what really made the dollar move up to such levels? And what would be the expectation in the near future?
Right. Thank you very much, Lorian. Let me just quickly take a minute to thank Mr. Suresh Dimel and Mr. Atul Idrising, our guest panelists, for gracing this occasion and adding a lot of value to our discussion today. And also the participants, we saw about 500 people joining this program, which is a great source of satisfaction to us as Commercial Bank, as your bank, to see that kind of interest in the program that we are conducting. So Lorian, getting back to your question of foreign exchange. Yes, it has been a very volatile period for the US dollar LKR exchange rate this year. We started the year at around 188 rupees to a US dollar as our exchange rate. We saw it slowly going up to 200, 205 level, where it was relatively stable for maybe about 2-3 months. And then over the last 6 to 8 weeks, we've seen a great and a very sharp depreciation going up to the levels that you mentioned of about 230, 235 levels. Those are the official exchange rates, and we have heard that it had been trading much higher in the unofficial market also. So the key development that happened last week was that the governor of central bank, the former governor of central bank, requested the assistance of the market participants, that's the banks, as well as the export community, as well as the remittance providers, to assist the government in maintaining the foreign exchange rate around 203, which is the current level, which is still about 7% depreciation for the year to date. So in order to see where the exchange rate is headed and why is it depreciating, we need to look at the main components of demand and supply of the foreign exchange to the country. So as you all know, we get about 10 to 12 billion US dollars worth of foreign exchange from our exporters, and our exports proceeds have been very robust. And according to last available central bank figures for the month of July, the export proceeds have been about 1.1 billion US dollars. Let me just share one statistic from the central bank for the benefit of the audience, and I'm sure many would have seen this already. The merchandise exports for the first 7 months of 2021 was 6.8 billion US dollars, which is a growth of nearly 1.3 billion, or 23% from last year. However, the imports has also grown quite significantly to 11.7 billion in the first 7 months of the year, which is a 30% growth in the compared to 2020. So as a result, we have seen that the supply of dollars to the market compared to the demand has been less. The other two components in the supply side for US dollars is the tourism proceeds, and as Mr. Preena mentioned, as well as the other speakers before me, we have not seen any tourism related proceeds coming into Sri Lanka in the last year and a half. In 2020, the first quarter, we got about 700 million US dollars, but beyond that, we haven't seen that. So 2018, which was the last full year where we did not have any impact to tourism. 2019 also we saw the Easter bombing had some impact. The total tourism proceeds were close to 5 billion US dollars, which is a significant total in meeting the gap between the exports and imports. So we haven't had that. The worker remittances, which is the other key component and which provides about 7 billion US dollars, had been fairly okay this year also. But because of the absence of the foreign currency remittances from tourism, we have always had a sizable gap between the demand for foreign currency by the import sector compared to the supply that we are having. So in a case like that, as you all know, when the supply is less than the demand, you have the price going up. That's a natural way. We've seen this happening earlier also, but in all earlier occasions, what we have seen is that the central bank as the regulator stepping in at certain points in time to provide the shortfall of US dollars to the market, so that the balance comes back to the market and the foreign exchange rate stabilizes. Still, we have seen in 2016, prior to that in 2012, and maybe several other occasions where we have had a fairly sharp depreciation happening of 10 double-digit depreciation. So this time too, the problem that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka had in coming in and providing this shortfall is mainly because of the fact that the country's reserves also had been depleted due to various reasons. The main reason is the impact that came about as a result of COVID pandemic. It was a global impact. Almost all countries in the world is struggling with it. The economies are struggling with it. But for a third world country like Sri Lanka, where we are very much dependent on our relationships and our business with the outside world, this is having a major impact. And as you know, we had a sovereign downgrade where our ability to borrow overseas was also curtailed. So those challenges have added to this problem. So that was the main reason why the exchange rate sharply depreciated in the last 2 months, because along with the shortfall, we've seen that the importers also anticipating further shortages of foreign currency as well as depreciation has increased the imports also between the months July, August, compared to your normal imports. We've seen the 30% growth in merchandise. Also, one of the key components of our imports is the fuel the petroleum that we import. And that is expected to grow by over $2 billion in 2021 compared to 2020. So that is also going to add to the additional demand for US dollars. So all the reasons are very ripe for the exchange rate to depreciate. And on top of that, you would have certain amount of speculation also coming in, expecting the currency to depreciate further. You will see the supply side, there will be some delay in converting their foreign exchange earnings into Sri Lankan rupees or for remittance to reach Sri Lanka on time. So how this problem had been addressed is in several ways. One is, as Mr. Preena mentioned, in January this year, a regulation was brought in whereby the exporters are required to convert a certain amount of their foreign currency received into Sri Lankan rupees, about 25%. So initially that was an immediate requirement, but later on, because of practical reasons, this requirement is to convert within 30 days. Also, we've seen certain controls being brought in on the import trade also. Most recent control is that over 600 goods were listed as items which require the importers to provide 100% margin. So the idea is to slow down the import demand into to control the foreign exchange outflow of the country. And then we've also seen for the worker remittances, to encourage more remittances, the government is providing additional 2 rupees as incentive for the worker remittances also to be brought into Sri Lanka. The idea is that the overall 7 billion average and annual average that we are getting to be increased a little bit more so that it can be supported. So all these things are being done in order to make sure or at least attempt to maintain the exchange rate at a reasonable level, because if you have a very sharp depreciation, it creates a lot of difficulties for the general public of the country in terms of increase in the essential items, food items, and other expenses. So with that in mind, I believe that the central bank also brought in this 203 rupee level for the initial stabilization. And the government is also doing certain things to improve its own capacity to meet the future challenges in meeting obligations of the government, as well as to support the market. So as long as the supply and demand remains mismatched, we may see that the exchange rate will continue to show some pressures to depreciate. But I also like to point out that after the initial lack of conversions, immediately after the conversion rate was fixed at 203 rupees, we see now there is some amount of exports as well as remittances being converted. So we think it may reach some amount of stability in the near future. I can't say it would be at 203 rupees. It may be slightly higher, but we see some improvement happening. And also there will be a drop in the total imports that is going to take place in the next 3 months of the year. So I think in terms of the volatility that we've seen in the exchange rate, those are the main reasons that affected the rate, and that is the outlook that we are seeing for the next 3 months or so. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One more question. I think I would like both of you all to answer. That is Mr. Siribodhan and Mr. Dimel. There are speculations that there's going to be an agreement with IMF. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen? Mr. Asile, if you can answer that first.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, now we recognize that the country's external finances are in some amount of stress. So one of the options available to the government, or any government for that matter, is to seek the support of International Monetary Fund. And in Sri Lanka's history also, we have seen in many occasions that the respective governments have worked with the International Monetary Fund or the IMF to stabilize its reserves position and tide over certain. So this is, as I said, is one of the options. There are certain other options available which the government is also following up on. The bilateral facilities that has been proposed and also underway. Now, we reached our gross official reserves. That's the amount of foreign currency reserves that the government or the country holds, to about little less than $3 billion after July 31st. This was after the last sovereign bond was paid off by the government. So since then, we have seen an improvement of the reserves. One of the main reasons is that in August, the International Monetary Fund, as part of its policy program, provided about $800 million to Sri Lanka, along with much larger facilities among its member countries. So this has helped the reserve position to improve somewhat, and also the government has announced certain transactions to support its foreign currency position. There was a $300 million loan disbursement from China Development Bank. This is part of a syndicate loan that had been arranged last year. Then we have an agreement with Bangladesh Central Bank to provide some short-term foreign currency facility of about $200 million. Then there are two other facilities with the China Central Bank, as well as the Reserve Bank of India, which is the India Central Bank, which are as yet unutilized, and that provides another $1.9 billion funds available to the government in case of an emergency. The government has not used that as yet, but it is there as a support facility. There are other discussions also that is going on, which we have heard of over the weekend. I'm sure many of you would have seen that the energy ministry is negotiating with parties to secure a credit facility of a large credit facility of about $2.5 billion to meet the requirements of fuel imports. So how it works is, over the next 1 year, 1.5 years, so the government will get its part of its fuel requirement on credit. So that will also help help settling down the immediate cash requirement that the government has. So there are a few other initiatives that the government is following up, the country is following up. So a combination of all these will be helpful, and at some point, I'm sure the government will also keep its options open to work with the IMF as well.
Mr. Dimel, any thoughts on this, Mr. If you can share?
No, I think Mr. Asela has done a good
Okay.
job.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dimel, this question goes to you. We speak about exports. What mainly comes into our mind is the exportation of goods. But this is just one-sided. We have our service exports that contribute substantial value to the country's GDP. ICT had been in the forefront in growing service exports. For example, the software for the London Stock Exchange was created by the by a local company in Sri Lanka. And there are many more examples. Do you see whether Sri Lanka has the potential in growing this area, and what strategy EDB has taken for the development of this sector?
Yes, thank you. This is a big sector. Logistics and IT and even education, I think I mentioned earlier. In the IT sector, the most important thing is we are working with the associations like /Com and FITIS, and we have a large advisory committee. So we've identified the priorities and identified that business process management is the most important sector in ITC for us, because this business process outsourcing is what we are used to. That's just labor, whereas business process management would be more knowledge, and that's where the value is. So there are many initiatives again with the foreign missions. We have many initiatives to promote our IT. It's a high priority for us. It's in our national export strategy as well.
Thank you, Mr. Dimel. Mr. Edising, just one more question, I think, in the interest of time. There's a question that came out of the chat box, I think. I cultivate variety of fruits. How can I get advice regarding the preservation and packing methods? Mr. Edising, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, the question of fruits and vegetables about the preservation. This is something where the technology has to be used. At least the technological advice need to be used. So my advice is any SME or any exporter who desires of exporting either fruit or a vegetable or similar product must contact the Industrial Technology Institute and make an appointment, talk to them and get their advice about the preservation. Then in addition, in our 3 universities, I mentioned this earlier too, in Peradeniya, Sri Jayawardenapura and Vayamba University, we have Food Science and Technology Department. Food Science and Technology Department. In Sinhala, they identify as Ahara Vidyaha Takshana Department. Now, these divisions, these departments can give them the advice. They are already in it. They've developed solutions to this. So it's a question of knowledge sharing. So I would advise any intended exporter to get in touch with the ITI, that is the Industrial Technology Institute, or Karmika Takshana Ayatane or Aharaha Vidya Takshana Department in the universities. So we will give you the ready-made answers and ready-made solutions for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Prina, there is one question for you. I'm a cinnamon exporter. I buy cinnamon from farmers. What type of facilities being a cinnamon exporter and my farmer could enjoy from the bank?
Yes, thank you, Laurie. This is, I think, a very good question because commercial bank, as I mentioned earlier, also we cater to a large number of exporters and various exports. Cinnamon is again, I think, one of the top segments of our export basket, and I think almost all the major cinnamon exporters are banking with us, with our branch network, especially down south. So the facilities, because the cinnamon growers, they fall into this sort of this SME and this micro level. So they can enjoy facilities with our branches to get their working capital facilities, like say maybe overdrafts, if not any say short-term loans, and also if they need any support to develop their business, we can arrange some loan schemes like we have the Diribala scheme and Dirishakti like that. So there are various loan schemes available to give them a helping hand. And also when it comes to the export side, we can help them with the pre-shipment and post-shipment financing. If they can, if when they get to know a buyer and they strike a deal and negotiate for to supply some quantum, then we can help them to source the raw material, the cinnamon, then also to meet whatever the working capital expenses, because they need the peelers and various other things, the logistical expenses are there. So for that, we can give them the pre-shipment financing based on the export order what they give, and a certain percentage we can finance them, which can be settled from the proceeds they get. So as I mentioned earlier also, we can also give them the post-shipment finance once they ship the goods, and until without waiting for the buyer to make the payment, depending on the buyer's credibility and all that. After evaluating that, the bank can advance the money, discounting their bills. In addition, we can also help them to get the reports on buyers. If they find some buyers, okay, maybe some of them may be already in our database, because some of our other exporters may be already dealing with those buyers. So therefore, we have some idea. And if not, we can always connect with our 1,300 odd correspondent banks all over the world. And definitely we must be having a relationship with some of these banks who are in that buyer's country. So we can get a bank report, or if not, we can get a from Dun & Bradstreet also, we can get reports and help the exporter. So in addition, as I mentioned earlier, there are 19 officers specially trained, agri and SME officers in our bank, so that if at the growing level, if they need any support or advice, these agri officers can help them, because they have the agricultural background as well as the bank financing requirement they know better. So therefore, they will play a dual role there, whilst helping the with the cultivation. They can also give advice and link to the bank to the relevant areas for the grower, the cinnamon grower, or the person who is buying that and exporting, to get the bank finances. So as a bank which had have a history of over 100 years, we have the specialists in all these areas, and no need to worry. Come to us. We will help you with all your financing requirements. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pina. Thank you. So this has been a very interactive discussion we had with all speakers. We can clearly be focused on what the future holds for exports in Sri Lanka. With that, I would hand over to Mr. Prasad Fernando, who is our head of imports, for the word of thanks. Over to you, Prasad.
Thank you, Lorian. On behalf of the Trade Finance team of Commercial Bank, we wish to convey our sincere appreciation to Mr. Suresh Dimel, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Export Development Board of Sri Lanka, and Mr. Athula Edirisinghe, Business Consultant and the Managing Partner of Strategic Management Alliance, for sacrificing their precious time and sharing the valuable information related to export trade and its new developments. And of course, the management team members of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, who are among the panelists today. Mr. BHS Freena, AGM Corporate Banking, and Mr. Asela Vijayasirivardhan, AGM Treasury, for their valuable inputs to the webinar and to the Q&A session that followed thereafter. Mr. Lorian Somanath, our moderator, did a superb job throughout the entire webinar in a very meaningful manner, making it more fruitful for the audience. Lorian, please accept our sincere thanks.
Thank you.
This session would not have been successful if not for your participation. We thank all of you who registered and logged onto the webinar. Over 500 participants joined today. And finally, I would like to thank the management of Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC for their direction and guidance to make this webinar a reality. Thank you and hope to see you all at the next event organized by the Trade Finance team of Commercial Bank. Wish you all a pleasant evening.